Before we move on with anything else, I just want to teach you about this tone changes. So we'll write tone changes as a little title here. I know it sounds boring, but it is very necessary. Boring things are usually the most necessary ones. And so all I want to tell you is really, there's one thing about the bu, as in the no character. Let me just change back to Chinese here. So we have bu, like this. And usually, typically it'd be spelled with or it'd be written out, or it'd be pronounced with a fourth tone. But if there are two fourth tones right next to each other, for instance, we have bu shi, then this sounds very awkward. Bu shi. It does, at least for the Chinese ear. And so what Chinese has done here instead is, because bu is used so much and it sounds very awkward every time it comes before a fourth tone, then we've decided, me and the Chinese committee, we've decided that if there's a fourth tone, the fourth, like the down going tone, then we put this one onto a second tone, so it becomes, that's the one going upwards, so it's bu shi instead, and that sounds a lot nicer all of a sudden. Whew. Okay, so let me just write that here somewhere. So we have here, it should be bu, but now instead it's bu shi, and that's only in case there is a fourth tone after it. And the second rule here is you'll notice it much less than this one, because I barely noticed it. I just started reading a book, and then only at that point I started realizing that this is actually a thing as well. So E, number one, is usually written like this, pronounced with the first tone, E, but only if it's pronounced as a number. If what we want to say is like, for instance, 一个 is an expression to say one of something. We'll start using that from, I think it's the next lesson already. So yes, you'll get introduced to that very soon. But the idea here is that this g will have a fourth tone, and then it sounds very awkward to say 一个. So it sounds a lot better if we put a second tone to that. So here, again, the rule is usually it'll just be an E if we're counting the numbers or the years or your address or anything. There's a number simply. But if there's a g here, and it's involved in other words, which will be later, then it sounds a lot better to do just like we did with bu shi, here with the bu here. And that is very important that you know. So let's write down some rules for this now. I've already done some pre-work here, so you can see what I've written. When followed by a fourth tone, E changes to a second tone, and we can see that here. E should be E, but here it's a fourth tone, so it goes E, just like bu shi. And that looks very, very logical, and it makes sense to your ears as well. This E is much less important than the bu, because you'll hear much less of it. E and E sound very similar, the first and the second tone. The second one, though, is as soon as it's followed by, let's just write like this, when followed by any other tone, it will change to, let's go, not it, but just to be clear here, E, as in E, will change to a fourth tone. Change to fourth tone. The fourth tone, just to be completely correct here. The fourth tone. So okay, what does this mean then? This means this means let's just write another word. We can write 100, which would be bai, like this. And then when you say yi bai, this E will actually turn into a fourth tone, yi bai, so it would be yi bai. But again, you can't really tell by listening very quickly, so I wouldn't tell you to pay too much attention to this rule. The only rule that carries major importance is this one. Let me mark it in a different color here. Is this one? Yes, this one very much indeed.